So today I am very honored and excited to bring you special guest Karen Pacent, my mother. Yay! I wanted to ask my mom on the show today, not only because I love her. I love you, Mom.
I love you too, sweetie.
But because this week is actually National Suicide Prevention Week. And as most of you out there know, our family has been very affected by suicide. It's okay. I told my mom already that she does not have to keep it together in this interview, that I have cried on camera many times before, that you all have witnessed, and that it's perfectly okay. So we're going to create a loving, supportive atmosphere for that. It's a difficult topic. So mainly I wanted to bring my mom on because it's really important to talk to parents of children who have taken their lives. I know I have spoken as a sibling to the internet about how suicide affects my life and how much I have encouraged people to seek help. And I hope that sharing my story and my loss has inspired people to do that. And I feel very strongly that parents should also come out and talk on that, even though it's very difficult. Thank you for being here, Mom. So we're going to start just a little easy, not easy. Tell us a little bit about where you're coming from with this, our story a little bit. You don't have to go into all of it, but just your name and your daughter's name and all of that.
Oh, well, this is going to be all of a sudden a lot harder than I thought it would be.
It's okay.
So Nicole's already said I'm her mom. I'm Karen Pacent, and my daughters are Nicole and Kimberly. And where am I coming from on this? A place of incredible sorrow and tremendous support and prayers that we can do something about the desperation that people must feel in taking their life, and also do something for those who are, I would call victims, because they are in a lot of ways those who are left behind. Kim was just 6 days of her 27th birthday.
Yeah, so she was
6 days short of April 1st.
Yeah. So, thank you for sharing that. At the grief support group that I go to, and my mom sometimes goes to the chapter in Connecticut, actually, the first thing that they have everybody do is what's called rounds, where you go around and say your name and your child or sibling's name and how old they were when they passed. And often people say that that's the hardest part of group, because you go in there saying like, I'm okay tonight. I'm doing all right. I think I'm in an okay place. And it's like, as soon as you start talking about it, it's hard to talk about it, even just to say their name in that context. So thank you, Mom. In what ways since Kim's passing, in what ways has your awareness of suicide become heightened in terms of its prevalence within our culture, or the lackadaisical way that some people talk about it, or the way that people don't talk about it because it's taboo? How have you become more aware?
Well, I think it's like anything else. Once you've experienced it, then your radar goes straight up every time the word is mentioned, every time somebody says something in jest like, I'm going to kill myself, or
which is like every day.
Which is like
Literally.
every day. So it just increases one's sensitivity to anything related to, certainly to taking your own life, to children's death prior to their parents. Yeah, and I think that I've read more. I know I've read more about it. I've tried to understand. I certainly, at the beginning, tried to change things I was doing so it wouldn't happen, and then I'd realize, oh no, that's too late. And I then tried to understand more about what's behind it. And I don't think there's any well, there's definitely not one answer. There's many reasons why people take their lives. But I've become sensitive to the tremendous pain that is behind suicidal thinking. And I've read many of Kim's journals now, all of Kim's journals now, and how much is written both by the lines and in between the lines. And yeah, it's my heightened sensitivity in everything.
Mom and Dad did a walk for suicide prevention. You want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, the walk's called Out of the Darkness, and it is there are local walks, but there are 2 annual walks, and they tend to be bi-coastal, and they are in support of suicide prevention. They are in support of both those people coping on their own with suicidal thinking. There were many people walking for themselves, and also for individuals who have gone through the pain of suicide, or a member of their family or friends that have committed suicide, and also it's for governmental funding and recognition that mental illness is real, and it is something that is an illness, just as cancer is an illness. So is mental illness, or mental illness, and suicide is simply the obvious manifestation in the worst kind of way of someone who can no longer cope with living.
I believe the statistic is 41,000 Americans commit suicide every year, which is a staggering number when you think about it.
And it's more for younger people now than it's ever been.
Yeah.
And that somehow has to be better understood.
Mm-hmm.
Better understood. And understanding it is talking about it. Understanding it is if somebody says that they are feeling as though they want to kill themselves, it's not something to dismiss. It's something to directly ask, are you thinking of taking your life? What are you thinking of doing? And then how are you thinking of doing it? So very difficult questions to ask, especially because you don't want to put any ideas. That the thought is, I don't want to put any ideas in their head, so I just want to not talk about it at all. And my understanding now from the Association for Suicide Prevention is that that's the wrong approach. In fact, a much more direct approach is important. I remember sitting with Kim toward the end, and she would wake up in the morning and said, "Mom, I just didn't want to wake up this morning, and I don't want to be here." And I would sit on the edge of her bed and say, "Kim, you have no idea what you're saying, and we will find a solution. That's all. We will find help. We will find a solution. There are other things we can try." And she hated her medication. She needed medication, although Lord knows that's such a crapshoot. How much, what kind. And
it's part of why we need funding for mental health and mental illness, because there's so much we don't know, and people need help, and we don't know how to give it properly and diagnose properly and treat properly, and only funding and time and attention can help that. So sorry to interrupt, but yes.
Yeah.
if there is some advice you can give beyond what you just did, which I thought was brilliant, to parents and siblings and loved ones of people who are deeply depressed and thinking about suicide, what signs would you say to look out for? What kinds of, and it's okay if you say I have no idea, because that's the thing, is like, it's a crapshoot. It is.
Well, certainly any sign that would indicate someone is so depressed they don't want to get out of bed. So depressed they talk about not knowing how to deal with each day. Even hints, it's time to call a suicide for you as the person hearing it. It's time for you to call a suicide prevention line.
What are your thoughts about people who, I find it's usually from the outside, someone who hasn't actually been close to someone who's committed suicide, but what do you think when people say that suicide is a selfish act?
If you're at a point where you're ready to take your life, and self-preservation is such a high basic human need, you're not thinking of other people at that point. It's not about you're doing this to someone. You are desperately at this point trying to help yourself, trying to find some way out of the fog. It is a desperate act. It is not an act of logic, even though it might be calculated. It's not about somebody else. This is my experience of it. It is not about at some point, I have not been in that scenario of somebody else's head, but at some point they stop thinking about everyone else, and the only person they're thinking about is themselves and the pain that they're in.
Yeah, and to add to that, I think because I did like a essay and video on this a while back, but how annoyed I am when people say things like that, how stupid it is, and just naive, really. I think that for somebody to get to that point, there is where you're actually going to go against your most basic instinct, survival, right? That there has to be, like, the actual sense of self is so skewed at that point. Like, you've lost a very basic sense of self, that the idea of being selfish it doesn't even, like, come into play. Not to mention that, unfortunately, and this kind of goes into something else that I wanted you to address, like, that when people get to that point, often they think they're doing the people around them a favor. They actually, like, have convinced themselves that they are such a burden, whether it's emotionally, mentally, financially, on the people around them, on their loved ones. I know Kim said that many times, that she felt like eventually, she knew we'd be sad, but we'd be better without her, and, that she isn't the person that she used to be, and, she really convinced herself that she was a burden. And I've heard other people talk that way, and if you had some words that you could say to people who are struggling, who think that they are a burden, what would you say? And if you can, maybe talk directly into camera on this. You don't have to be together. It's okay.
I think I probably said this, and I'll speak only as though I would be saying it to Kim, and I'm on my 4th journal of writing her letters, so I certainly have written it to her. Losing someone you love is so much more difficult than any possible scenario prior to that could be. And I'm not suggesting that it's not difficult to be around someone who is hurting so much and you're trying to help, because you're racking your brain all of the time. What do we do? You're trying different things. So it is difficult. It's infinitely more difficult not to have them. And and I've written this to letters now, in letters to Kim, I wish I had said that more often, that I love you so much. It would be devastating living without you. And it is. It is.
If you had to pick 3 things, and it's a ridiculous thing to say anyway because there are a million, but if you had to pick 3 things right now that you miss most about Kim, what would they be?
I didn't see that coming. Her laugh.
She had the best laugh.
And when she really got going, she would make you laugh. I mean, it's just, that was just how she was. Oh man, could she tell a great, funny story?
Mm-hmm.
She was just a great storyteller.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. I miss listening to her play the piano.
She's a brilliant pianist.
I miss just watching her hands fly across the keys, and how into it she is. I mean, she was really hard on herself relative to her music, and but she was so, when she was on a roll, she was just so into it.
Yeah.
And I loved watching her intensity, and I think she took a lot of her pain out on the keyboard.
Yeah.
And it came out as intense and beautiful music in many, many different ways. Let's see. Her laugh, her hugs. Her hugs. Poor Nicole gets 10 times more hugs now.
Mom kind of barnacles on me.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. She's making up for it.
I like hugs. It's okay. I do just want to take a second here and acknowledge 2 things about my mom, but really my parents. Unfortunately, my dad is not visiting California right now, or he would be somehow squeezing into this tiny little space with us. One day he will. But I really, as I said in Kim's eulogy, I want to acknowledge you for just doing everything under the sun for Kim. There's no way Mom could have been a better mom, seriously, and that
we can always be better.
But really, I mean, and they did everything that they knew to do to help her and to love her, and she was a very loved person. So I want to acknowledge you for that. And also, as hard as things have been for you, I really want to acknowledge you for also somehow being there for me. And I know that I hear a lot in grief group about siblings getting shafted because everybody's worried about parents' pain, which of course, like if they lose a child, it's like everybody knows somehow that's the worst thing that could happen. So of course people give a lot of attention to the parents, and then unfortunately a lot of times siblings who are in so much pain over the loss of a sibling get the short end of the stick. And I have to say that my parents did not make me feel like that, and it has been a great gift. So thank you.
The only pain greater than losing a child is having a child who's lost a sibling and not being able to bring them back for them. So it's kind of that double pain. I know I can't help you other than just being there.
Can't help
listening.
you but being there, yeah. But I love you.
I love you too.
I think before we wrap up, the only thing that I want to say is, and that, you could chime in, is please, if you are struggling, if you're having suicidal thoughts, if you feel like you can't go on, or if you just need someone to talk to, please reach out. There is a National Suicide Prevention Lifeline. It's 1-800-273-8255. I will also have that written in the comments of this video. You can call 24/7. There will be somebody who's trained who's there to talk to you. You can also go and visit the National Alliance on Mental Illness, NAMI, N-A-M-I, their website. They have a helpline as well. And you can also, in a moment of need, text NAMI, N-A-M-I, to 741-741. Please reach out. We are living proof that no matter how hard it gets, we want you here. Your loved ones want you here, and we will do everything we can to fight for you. So,
and you have no idea how many people you touch.
More people than you know.
You have no idea how many people you touch in this world. So,
and survivors of suicide, those who have been left behind, as my mom said, please feel free to reach out to others. Go to Compassionate Friends, which is a great grief support group. Look up survivors of suicide support groups in your area. It really does help to talk to other people who are going through it. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching and for participating in National Suicide Prevention Week. Please spread the word, get the word out there that we need to raise funding and awareness around this very, very important issue. Thank you, and see you soon. Bye.
Exactly what I needed you to stay.